All right, welcome to VB Culture Value Science lesson number 5. So this lesson is going to be about the experiential value of peace. So let's dive into the importance of this value and how it impacts our organizational cultures. So again, we're starting with creational values, and we're discussing all the small little things that go into creating experiential values. And we talked about the 6 different experiential values. When we expand this, we see the calming values, which we're wrapping up today, which are trust, harmony, and peace. So the calming pathway is the pathway that leads from relationships. So when you can do this correctly, and going from trust to I can trust you, to I can work with you, to I can work with you and not have stress or cortisol that gets released when we come together, we have peace. That's where we're headed. So we're looking sort of at the final value in this row. And this is a very important one, because you think, well, peace shouldn't be that important, but actually peace is an indicator that you've done the other 2 correctly. So if you are exhibiting the values of peace, then you've come to the point where you've done the first 2 correctly. So it's a very important overall. And then again, we'll be looking at wisdom, nobility, and joy, which is more excitatory, like active, energetic values that we create, experiences that we create for people. And that'll be our next 3 sessions. So now we're going to be focusing on the attribute, the value of peace. And the primary question we have for peace is, do we live together without stress? And the positive was like, do we live together with great feelings of calmness and serenity? So that's what we're looking for. The primary question, do we live together without stress? And so peace has 3 different sub-values that go along with peace. So we'll be exploring serenity, gratitude, and acceptance. And we'll be defining what those 3 are. So let's talk about serenity. That sounds like a very noble word here. But how do we create serenity with others? So it's being safe, at rest, and 0 stress. So like I said, this is the place where I can be with you and I don't foresee stress and I don't have stress with you now. So I trust you that much. We work together that well that when we come together, I can experience serenity and we just have no stress together. And that's the state that we're looking for, that you can get to that point where our relationship actually will cause you peace and serenity and well-being. So that's the level of serenity that we're looking forward to. So the opposite of serenity, no safety, constant threats to your being valued as a person. So your threat to your energies, your threat to life not having purpose and working, and people not caring for you. So that's when you come into a workplace and you've not developed trust and you've not developed harmony, that person's constantly going to be feeling stress. So it's kind of the opposite of serenity. Let's move on to the next sub-trait, gratitude. So if I have trust and harmony, I'm going to be grateful. So I'm going to acknowledge how I've been valued in the past. So that's what gratitude is all about, is how do I acknowledge and sort of think about how I've been valued in the past. So I will say I might even express this to others. So oftentimes we think of gratitude is something that we're expressing to others, but it's also something I'm just thinking about in my mind, like what happened today. So oftentimes one effective technique, according to the Berkeley Center for Good, is to journal about your gratitude, what you're grateful for. And oftentimes that will show you the things that are really important to you by looking over how you felt valued throughout the day and what made you feel valued. So gratitude is a very important state and experience to be able to create in others and to celebrate how we've valued each other. So what's the opposite of gratitude? How do we know that we don't have it? Fearing that you've not been valued, so and will not be valued. So you kind of have this constant state of like, this isn't working, I'm not feeling valued. So it's a ungrateful state because you're not happy the way that you've been treated. So it's a celebration, again, of how you've been treated, which is gratitude. Acceptance. Acceptance is a state in which we get ourselves to this point, being okay with what is now, either good or bad. So this has a component of like this could have some negative emotions in it. If you recall back in our emotional science, this was a big indicator that we've achieved some sort of focus on our emotional state. Now you're thinking, how could we be feeling bad feelings? Well, you could lose things. Opportunities can be lost. Something could go wrong. There's a lot of difficult feelings that we'll experience throughout the day, but if you can get to the point where you're accepting them, that's a point of peace. So you can do that in the context of trust and harmony. It's like, it's going to be okay. This is not a good thing. I can accept that, but it's going to be okay. So that's where acceptance is. And also, we're accepting the good. I like where I'm at. I think things are good. So these are two dynamics that you will have in the realm of acceptance. So let's look at what acceptance isn't: fighting and repressing your emotional world. So again, a bit from our emotional section there, our last module, where you're constantly sort of fighting and trying to repress those feelings or change the feelings and things and the experiences that are having. And a lot of times that's a state that you'll adopt if you don't have the trust and harmony thing going well in your world. So you should have experiences of acceptance if you're experiencing peace. So those are the three sub-factors that make up peace: serenity, gratitude, and acceptance. And that is the value, the experiential value of peace that we hope that you can create within your workplace. So oftentimes what I encourage you to be doing is to have some discussions. Think about different dilemmas that might happen in your workplace. Serenity. Did you cultivate trust and harmony? Did we get to that? Did we get to serenity? Did we not cultivate trust and harmony? How are we not experiencing serenity in our workplace? So that'd be a dilemma. What are the small things that we can do to create that? Gratitude. Specifically name and detail how you valued others. So it would be trying to work on the practice of expressing it to others. So there'd be one small thing that you could do to be able to do that for others. What causes me to try to neglect expressing gratitude? Am I just too busy? Do I think it's not worth it? Do I feel awkward for something about saying this to others or expressing it to myself? So what are some things about that might be causing you to neglect the whole experience of gratitude? What about acceptance? How can you talk about acceptance? Can we gain perspective on our emotional reality? Or are we trying to react and repress things? Like oftentimes companies will have an after-action report. Like, how do we want to deal with this? Do we accept what happens and accept the failures and the negatives along with the positives and the goods that happen? Can we just accept those and learn from them and move on? So those are some dilemmas that you might take into your work meetings and be able to discuss them with your team. So that's how we go from creational values to experiential values, which is our focus during these next lessons. Now let's talk a little bit about the science behind this. We've got this whole lesson about serenity, and peace is something that is really valuable in defeating burnout, because burnout is where you don't feel control, you'll feel overloaded, you don't feel gratitude. So burnout is a state in which you constantly are feeling cortisol from stress, adrenaline from stress. You're kind of hyped up, and eventually your body's just going to crash by trying to maintain that state for too long. So remember, we're talking about peace is the state where I can encounter others without feeling stress. So you could see burnout is the state where I have stress when I encounter others, and I'm trying to maintain that state for years, and that amount of stress and energy that takes eventually leads you to burnout. And these are the three things that tend to lead towards burnout: is the lack of control. So if you're not having those discussions like we talked about in the emotional section where, is this working? What's not working? Do you have enough energy? Then that person's not going to feel control, and they just have to try to keep all the plates spinning that someone else is foisting on them. Overload, again, if you're not connecting emotionally and you're not building trust and harmony, you're getting to the point where you're going to feel overload constantly, and no one ever says thank you for what you're doing. No one ever expresses gratitude. So you never are feeling valued. No one's ever highlighting that what you're doing is valuable to them. So that's something that causes burnout, according to the science. All right, so let's talk about gratitude now. So according to the statistics from the Berkeley Center for Greater Good, you've got a 50% higher rate of personal satisfaction when you express gratitude and when you receive gratitude. So one of the keys to expressing gratitude is in being detailed about how you've been valued. So rather than just saying thanks, you want to actually engage with someone and say, thanks for staying a little extra after work and putting in extra energy to get that report to me. I really appreciated that extra effort, and you really bailed me out because I had forgotten to ask you earlier in the day. So that's a way that you can express specific gratitude from someone rather than just saying thanks. You can see the difference. It shows that you've actually considered and thought through how that person affected you, and that makes a difference in expressing gratitude. So gratitude will increase employee engagement, it will decrease turnover by 20%, and it'll increase personal satisfaction by 50%. So Menlo Innovations has one of those that they've been in some of the stories that we've told. They're a computer programming company that is visited by people from all over the world. 3,000 visitors a year visit them and see how they do their culture, because their culture is so innovative and so productive. And one of the things that they've done is they have a thank you wall where it's just a system where people can write notes to each other and personally acknowledge to not just that person, but maybe the group, how they've been affected by the others being valued by them. Expressing those different things in a group context is yet another way to sort of take it up a notch with your expression of gratitude. So an effective way from a very effective business culture to do that. So another story is about Michael Stollard, a gentleman that I've had the pleasure to get to know better. He wrote the book Connection Culture, and he also wrote a book on burnout. So his personal story is that he was a VP at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. And of course, there were crushing hours that were developed within that organization. He was always feeling on the edge of burnout, and he realized that he had to make some changes in his life. And so he decided to engage more with individuals in his life, the people that were important to him and the people that were next to him, to do more what he called creating a connection culture, very close to VP culture, and valuing people and connecting with people, and how that made a difference in his life. The other thing he did was to check in regularly with himself, to be honest with the amount of energy that he had, and to be clear with others of what he could and could not do, rather than just saying yes and letting everything pile on. So you can see those things are part of being candid in the trust sector, and being appropriate with the order that everything is in the harmony section, that he could be empathetic with himself. And that led to creating a better life-work balance, that he didn't end up constantly just having to push himself into the stress zone in order to make life work. So in order to create that, he was able to do acceptance. He was able to create a sense of serenity and express a new gratitude for his life in a different way. So putting all those things into practice is something that he was able to do by creating a connection culture in his life instead of just burning himself out. So all of these things led to peace in his life. Let's move to our group questions. How beneficial would it be to evaluate life based on peace versus just being burned out? Question number 2. What is needed to experience serenity in the workplace? Question number 3. When you sincerely express gratitude to someone, how does it impact both them and you? And then the final question. How does acceptance change how you face your reality? How does acceptance change the way you face your reality? All right, that brings us to the end of this lesson on experiential values, peace. We hope that you understand that peace is made up of serenity, gratitude, and acceptance, and that will make a difference in how you face your world at your culture. So that's the end of lesson number 5. And we hope you join us soon for lesson number 6 with our VP Culture Value Science course.